Here's what I did. Here's what I did. Here's what I did. He thinks he's awesome.
Hey everybody, this is me, the Undead Viking. I'm here to talk to you about this game today. It's called Paradise Lost. Paradise Lost is a game for 2 to 5 people, in which each player will take on a role, like a classic literature role, like say Beowulf or Billy Goat Gruff, or even Red Riding Hood. They are, all of these like heroes have been sucked into this White Witch's realm. And she is going to use this classic villain, and that would be like the antithesis to the the possible heroes that you have. So like Grendel is in there, or the troll for Billy Goat Gruff, or the wolf in like the big bad wolf. If you happen to be talking about the Red Riding Hood, and I think there's like the 9-headed hydra for, I believe that's Perseus, right? Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, but anyway, there's plenty of these different villains that are like basically villains of these particular classic heroes. And then there's also going to be like a classic weapon, like the huntsman's axe, that was used to kill the big bad wolf, that sort of thing. And what the players are going to be trying to do is, in order to defeat the villain, you're going to have to figure out who the villain is, because you don't know exactly who the villain is, and then you're going to have to figure out the weapon that will be that particular villain's weakness. And that isn't necessarily like, if it is the wolf, it isn't the huntsman's axe. It could be like the Vorpal blade or whatever, or it might be like fire arrows or something like that. So and once again, these are like the classic, like there's even like the horns of Billy Goat Gruff is like one of the weapons, so like it's the classic weapons for each of these particular heroes, and so, but you aren't going to know which one it is. You're going to have to try to figure that out by traveling across the different realms of the White Witch's world, and using your wherewithal to both like deduce like knowledge that the other people that are playing the game know, and also hiding the knowledge that you have, so they don't get that from you. Now this does use, and I'm sure most of the people that are watching this video are going to be familiar with this game, it does use the classic clue, or Cluedo, as it was originally known, mechanism of the fact that you have a few cards that will give some of the information that the particular villain and the bad guy, and the bad guy and the weapon needed to kill the bad guy. And the other players will have that as well. And you're going to need to ask the other people at specific moments when you reach different oracles. You're going to have to ask them different questions to try to figure out the information that other people have, and basically eliminate possible weapons and villains in order to pull off the win. Now that isn't that isn't like all of the game. There's so much more to it, because of the fact that there's going to be lots of different resources that you have to collect. As you travel the board, it's going to use a really good moving mechanism that I've always enjoyed in games, which is the person that is furthest back on a track will be able to be the one that gets to make their choice of where they go. It also has a wonderful thing where basically other players can gum up the works, because they'll be using up the spots, and there might be a spot like you really want to go to, say a spot that will get you some coins as far as a resource, or some mana crystals that you need as a resource to get you the what you need to actually do what you want to do. But other players have used that spot, and so you kind of have to hopefully force people to move off those spots that you want to use and empty them out before you get to go. So it has some cool things going on with that as well. But I've kind of talked a little bit longer than I wanted to here, but let me show you how the game is played. It was a game it sounded like it was going to be pretty straightforward, and it was, but it took a session. But I'll talk about that. It took a session for me to really kind of grasp the whole thing, which I think was a good thing in this situation, because I was expecting kind of a lighter game, but it turned out to be something a little heavier than I expected. But let me talk about that and more as I explain how the game is played, and then we'll come back here and I'll give you my final thoughts. Alright, I'm going to show you how Paradise Lost is played. This is a relatively easy game to understand as far as the mechanisms go, but it will take a maybe a play session or two for you to really kind of grok the strategies and what you're going to be doing, trying to discover the secret of the evil witch, and trying to discover just exactly how you're going to defeat her. Now, if you ever played any sort of a game that has some sort of a hidden card component, I'm sure you've played games like this before. What happens is that each person will be given some of these oracle cards. Each person will start with 4 of these, and then, but before you do that, you will have this envelope of which you will take 2 of those cards and you'll place them in this little envelope, and you tuck it underneath so nobody else can look at it. You're also going to put an oracle card at each one of the oracle locations that are surrounded around the board, and those will remain there until all the players get to the oracle and reveal it. Each person will also get a little spreadsheet here, kind of like to mark down the stuff as they learn it. To add to like the thing, these are things I love about games, is when you actually just have all of the things that all the different locations on the board will do when you land on them, and those are these little colored circles that you see. I have set this game up to be a 4-player game. It can satisfy up to 5. It's just, you know, just with a 5-player game, there's a little bit difference as far as the where the oracle cards go, and as far as the distribution. But for the most part, the game will be played pretty much exactly as you're seeing here. So the big thing is that once you get your 4 oracle cards, you need to look at them. And remember, as I said, there is 1 villain and 1 weapon that will be used to defeat that villain. You're trying to find out those 2 things, so then you are able to guess the identity of like the weapon and the villain that the witch will be using, and you can defeat them in combat. And so, like, looking at my cards here, I got legendary armor, Sir Mordred, flaming arrows, and horns. So I got 3 weapons and I got 1 villain. And so I know that, obviously, because of the process elimination, because I have those 4 cards, I know that these can't be in that envelope there. So I'm just going to take a few moments here. So we'll mark off horns, and make sure, obviously, you don't want anybody to see this. You want to be, you know, and mark off legendary armor and mark off Sir Mordred. And of course, these will be kept secret. You'll put this down like so, and like you won't be revealing that to anyone. Of course, you know, like towards the end of the game, you'll be, you know, revealing your guesses and revealing like what you think is in there, and you'll show that at that time. All right, so. And then you'll roll randomly to see who's the first player. You set yourself up here, and the person that is going to be going first will actually technically set themselves up in the last possible place that's available, because the person who is in last will go and take and move their character on the track first. Now, what that means is that when they go, they get to pick any of the spots they want to go to. I mean, theoretically, if you really wanted to, you could just take your marker and you could go all the way to the end if you want. Now, that wouldn't be a really wise decision, and I'll explain why. But you can also notice that there are a couple of spots that have like 2 of those circles. That means that that particular location has 2 spots to land on, and you're only going to use those if you're playing a 4 or a 5-player game. If you're playing a 3 or less, you will need to just use the 1 that's on the track. No 2 players can ever be on the same spot at any time, and you'll always, like, if you've played games like Thebes or like Kraftwagen, whenever you have a situation where, you know, you have multiple people set up like so, let's say green's here, it would be green's turn to go. Green could very well go there as a turn, and they'd still get to go. Green would then go there, and then like they'd still be considered to be behind, and so then they could go to that location like so, and that would be this character's turn. So this character would go here, that one would go there, and now it would be green's turn again. It's been a long time since purple's been able to move, but that's just how that situation will work. Now, each player will start with 1 of each resource to begin with. You start with a mana crystal, a coin, and a seeker cube. You'll get more of those as the game progresses. Also, when you set up the game, you will roll the Oracle Cube. When you roll the Oracle Cube, what happens is that whatever resource you can, when I rolled it before I started this, I got the side that has, let me find the crystal. I got the side that has the crystal, like so. I put this cube on that crystal to basically say that that is the particular spot where when we finally get all the way around and we go to the Witch's Palace, whoever has the most crystals collected as the game has progressed will then be able to be the first person to make their guess. And whoever guesses correctly the first time will be the winner. You also roll this die and place it in the first Oracle location. I did that as well before I started filming. And I got the coin and the 1. So what that means there is with that 1, whoever is on the first place, meaning the first person that gets to the end of the track, will have immunity. The oracles are when the players are going to get the option to ask other players questions, basically saying, do you have one of these 2 cards in your hand? And then they were going to have to reveal those if they do in fact have them. But if you were the person who got there first and placed your character on marker 1, you would have immunity and be unable to do so. After you leave the one oracle location, the player will roll, and if they actually, I got the blank. If they get the blank, they have the option of taking the die and moving it to any possible spot and then placing it onto the next possible location. Or they have the option of leaving it blank, meaning that nobody has immunity and anybody can ask anybody questions when you reach that spot. All right, so just going over quickly what each location does. And like you notice, there's like a black, and there's this kind of like magenta-y, kind of pinky color, purple, white, blue, a lighter blue, like a teal, a red, and a yellow, and a green that are in these locations. And just just going with like the first one, you have that black one. That is a black swan card. When you go there, you will draw what's called a black swan card. Black swan cards are like a gamble card. They will have something. So like here's one that says lose 2 mana. Well, that ain't good, you know. So but it, like I said, it's a card that makes you gamble and possibly get, you know, good or bad possible situations. So here then you have like cards that says this, like take 2 coins or 2 mana from any combination of players or the supply. You know, take 2 seeker cubes from any other player or the supply. So it's kind of a grab bag. Normally it's maybe not the best decision to make, but sometimes if you want to gamble and you want to hopefully get something good, you will go ahead and reach that spot. Going to the next is the shrine. That's a kind of like magenta-y pinky color. If you pay a coin, you can get 2 crystals, and then you get, you know, and so you're basically exchanging the coin for that particular for those things. Moving on to the purple, that is the arena. For a crystal, you can get 2 coins when you go in that location. To this spot, you get the white, you get a Truth Seeker card. So the Truth Seeker card, you take these and you turn them over, flip face up or face down any hideout tile not locked in, or take 1 Seeker cube. Now, I'm jumping a little bit ahead as far as with the hideout tiles, because you do the hideout tiles when you reach the Oracle. So I'll talk about that in a second. But, you know, these have these options where it's like you can do one of these things and you could take a Seeker cube. And I'm going to just grab the deck here and I can show you some of the other things. Exchange one of your Oracle cards with a player of your choice. Look at the top hideout tile on the deck or any face down hideout tile that's played. These are the hideout tiles. Again, I'll talk about those in just a brief moment. Ask a question as if you were at an Oracle. So you be able, and then no player is able to be immune from that particular question. So Truth Seeker cards are good cards, like very useful when you land on them. They have a multitude of powers, and you don't want to shoot for those. All right, so then moving a little bit further down the track, we have both the blue and the red. I'll talk about those in just a second. I want to talk about the teal one first. The teal one is like the Bard's Tail location here, this teal color. The Bard's location is quite powerful as you get both a crystal mana and a coin when you land there. And then going on to the yellow, you have the marketplace. A marketplace allows you to exchange things up. So you can At the marketplace, you can do any of these options at any time, in any order you want. You can trade two coins or 2 crystals for 1 crystal or 1 coin, respectively. You can sell a scroll for 2 coins, or scroll card. These are the scroll cards. You're going to sell a coin for 2 crystals or 2 coins, whichever you like. And you can purchase or sell secret cubes for 3 crystals or 3 coins. Getting secret cubes is really important because they help you determine the hideout of the villain, which is actually a really, really important thing when you enter the end game, and I'll talk about that in just a little bit, as well as the scroll cards as well. The last possible place is these little green spots. The green spots are the wildlands, and that's just exactly what they are. They are a wild thing that can replicate any of the other spots in the location that you're in. They can't replicate, like, because all of them are kind of the same. They just are placed in different spots, but they replicate anything as long as they are not occupied by other players. So meaning that if the gray was on if gray was on the green spot, and blue or green here was on like this blue scroll spot, you couldn't use the hinterland to replicate that particular location, just so you know. Alright, so that's how that works. So I was going to talk about the scroll cards. Scroll cards are an interesting thing because if you can somehow manage to get all 5 of the scroll cards here, and I'm going to show you here. So the scroll cards actually have like a 1, they have a 2, they have a 3, they have a 4, and they have a 5. If you can get the 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 of either the red or the blue, or if you can somehow get the 1 through 5 of both, that's a very powerful thing, because what happens then is that you actually then don't have to guess if it is the either the villain or the weapon, or both, if you manage to get both of the 1 through 5 of the scroll cards. So it is something that will save you from having to try to discern through a process of elimination what is there. But there is one other thing about the scroll cards that is interesting. So when you take the card, you take it, you flip it over, and there's like this little, like the top of the flame, and then and so as you build it out, so then let's flip over number 2. I'll just show you this. I'm not going to show the whole thing. But when you build it out, they will form a picture, as you can see. Like, here's the top 2 parts, and then you'll form a 5 part flame. Now, remember when you said you could like sell those scroll cards back? That's like kind of because of the fact that there's only 2 of these 5s, meaning that not everybody's going to get them. And and so that would be the bottom part. You can kind of tell by the border as well. Like, you can see that that's the bottom part. So only 2 people could possibly complete the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, some of the cards, when you get them, like here's this one that has a 4 in it. When you flip it over, it'll have this marker on it. That means it's a Witch's Wrath scroll card. When you get a Witch's Wrath scroll card, you are forced to move up the track on the Witch's Wrath. There's other things that'll cause the Witch's Wrath to go off and move up the track as well. But you can notice that, and it might be tough to see, but you can see that there's this point here, and there's this point here, and a point here, and a point like that. As the Witch gains more and more Wrath, each time you hit one of those locations, you're going to take one of these Witch's Wrath cards, and you're going to turn it over, and you're going to put it down there. Now, Witch's Wrath cards will have an instant effect that will affect everyone, or they'll have a persistent effect that will stay in play until another card is drawn. So this one says you cannot stop at wildland locations, and you can see it has a little infinity symbol on it, meaning that that is a persistent effect. You can't prevent that. Some of them will just have this, like lose 1 scroll card from your most complete scroll and then discard. So like this is an instant effect, and you just take it and you put it aside. So like they come in both possibilities. Now you will draw, when you get to oracles, you will draw a Witch's Wrath card at those spots as well. And so even if you haven't got Witch's Wrath, you will get these Witch's Wrath cards at those spots when you get to the oracles. Alright, as I said, you're going to have to roll one of these die to determine like the spots. Let's just see what we got here. So we actually got, we got like, actually, since I don't have 5 players, let's choose, I'm going to pick. Let's go with money. Oh, no, you know what? I like the one. So money, and whoever's in spot 1 has immunity. When you get to an oracle, and when you get to an oracle, and obviously they would do this for all the other spots as well. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to reveal the the Oracle card that's located underneath there. So you're going to have like the 9-headed hydra, and now all the players are going to mark off the 9-headed hydra on their spot. So it's kind of like a free knowledge card that you get there. Now there are two particular cards, and I wanted to mention these at some point, and now is as good a time as any. There are two possible cards that are going to come into play, which are added to the deck. They can't possibly be in this envelope because they're not added until later. So that is the Cloak of Invisibility and Excalibur. These cards are going to be possibly under an Oracle location or possibly in people's hands. Basically, they have little special powers. Excalibur allows you to basically negate any sort of effect. If like somebody tries to have a Black Swan effect that affects you, or like if you want to cancel the effect of one of the Witch's Wrath cards, it works like that. It just basically prevents things happening. Also, like when you're on an Oracle spot and somebody asks you a question, you don't want to answer it, you can use Excalibur to cancel that. When you do use Excalibur, however, it does incur the Witch's Wrath, and you are forced to turn over a card when that happens. The other thing is that the Cloak of Invisibility, kind of does the same thing. When people ask you a question, you don't want to answer it, you can say, I don't have to answer that question, and then you give that person the Cloak of Invisibility card, and so now they will have its power the next time they get asked a question as far as when they're Oracle. Now, when you're in the Oracle, a couple of things happen. First of all, you have to wait for everybody else to catch up with you. So if Gray got there in the first place and they're waiting for all the other players, they just sit there and wait for everybody to catch up until they get into the Oracle at the same time as them. Once everybody is in there, you're going to get a bonus for being in there. If you arrive first at the Oracle, you automatically get a coin and you get a crystal for being there first. If you are neither first nor last, you can either gain a coin or a crystal, a mana crystal. It's your choice which one you want. If you're the last to enter, you draw a hideout clue tile from the pile that's there, and you're going to place that face down on one of these spots in the pentagram in the middle of the board. Now, before the game begins, you're going to be handed one of these triangles here. In like this case, this was the Soulless Swamp. Now there's the Ancient Cloud Mountains, the Eternal Cedar Forest, and so on and so forth. Here's like the Pagan Wasteland, Soulless Swamp, and Witch's Palace. So when you have those locations, what it is that is, for me, I want the hideout to be in the Soulless Swamp. And so if I'm the purple player and I draw this card and I get one of these triangles. So now what happens is they look at this, they're going to observe that, and what this says is this card, so when they place it in a location, say I'm the purple player, I want this to point to my spot where my hideout is. I'll explain why having the hideout is important here in just a little bit. But when you do that, so this particular spot means it's one of the two spots that's across from the location. So I want Soulless Swamp, so we put that face down because this card means that either one of these two locations is the possible spot for the hideout to be in. So there's also other, let me just turn these over. So this one, green check mark, it's just pretty straightforward. That is exactly where it is. If there is a plus sign, that means that it is, or I'm sorry, not plus sign, that's an X. It looks like a plus sign. That means that it can't possibly be there. And if you have one of these that says like left and right, that means it could possibly be right next to that particular spot. Now notice these are all put face down to begin. When they're face down, what's on the other side doesn't matter at all. The face down just means it can't possibly be in that spot regardless of what's on the other side. If this one was face down like so on the Soulless Swamp, it just means that it can't be in that spot. Now how do you get them turned around? Well, after you've been to the Oracle, and the process of the Oracle is pretty straightforward. I mean, each person, depending, on, you have to pay the price to be able to ask the question, and you have, like in this case, it's going to be a coin. You pay the price to ask the question, then people will ask in turn order, like, okay, do you have either they're going to mention two cards. They could be two villains. They could be two weapons, or they can be a villain and a weapon. It's up to you. And you ask the person the question. If they have one of those cards, they have to truthfully show you one of those cards, unless they have the protection of one of the two special cards here. They have to show you one of those particular cards. When they show them, then you actually get to then cross that off on your list, and so because it can't be in the envelope that's located here. If they don't have it, or they can just say, I don't have an answer for you. And that kind of gives you information. Now, of course, you could bluff and like say cards that you actually have in your hand to kind of put people, you know, to send people in the wrong direction. But this is like a deduction game where you're slowly but surely going to whittle it down to like a reasonable, either knowing exactly what it is or giving yourself a better chance at just taking a stab at the guess. But so the Oracle is pretty straightforward. Each person gets a chance to ask a question if they want. They aren't forced to, but you can do so. But remember, whoever has, if there is immunity, you cannot ask them anything. So after you've done that, and you've processed the entire question, now what you're going to do is you are going to handle the journey onward, because you're going to leave that particular spot. So the last here to arrive discards the Witch Rage card, and then draws another one, and then you prepare the next Oracle. Then that person will roll the die and determine what the next particular spot's going to be, and you're going to continue forward. Now, if you're on the fourth spot, like here, you won't roll the die because there isn't a spot. You're heading right to the Witch's Castle in this case. But the play continues forward to the next realm. Heroes move into the next realm in reverse arrival order. As each hero moves from the Oracle to the next, they seek the villain's hideout. So when you seek the villain's hideout, that's these cards in the middle. And so what each person can possibly do is they're going to, if they have Seeker Cubes, they can use those. If you pay one Seeker Cube, you can flip a hideout clue face up and look at its clue, and then you can decide to place it on any empty clue tile space in any realm, either face up or face down. So now you're kind of like, if you put them face up, you're whittling down the possibilities of where it could possibly be. You can't ever place a tile in a spot where the other clues make it invalid. So keep that in mind. So the other thing you do, if you pay 2 Seeker Cubes, you can flip one face-up clue face down and then place it on any empty clue tile space in the realm. So when you flip it up for paying one cube, you're kind of protecting it. You're basically saying, if you want to turn this one over and hide it, you got to pay 2 Seeker Cubes to pull that off. So if like I just went for it and said, you know what, I'm going to turn this over, good luck, you need to pay 2 to get rid of that and move it to another spot. And so hopefully maybe I look at the other players, I see they don't have 2 Seeker Cubes, they're not going to be able to do that. If you have 3 Seeker Cubes, you can take 3 Seeker Cubes and you can put them on one of the spots and you can lock it in place, meaning that nobody can ever change it, nobody can alter it, nobody can do anything with it. If it's face down, all that means, so if you have one that's face down here and you lock it into place, it doesn't lock the other side in place. It just basically says that that particular spot can't possibly be where the hideout is. So if I have a pretty good idea that one of my opponents has the Ancient Cloud Mountains as their spot, I could lock that into place and I can guarantee that they will not be where the villain is hiding out. So that's very important. So why is having that hideout important? Well, when you finally get to confront the Water Witch at the very, very end. Now, there's two possibilities. Either you'll go around the whole entire board and you'll get back to here and then you'll go through the basic process of each person going to be taking a guess at what's in this particular envelope, and hopefully one of you gets it correct, because then you'll have to defeat the Water Witch and that person will win. However, if the Witch's Wrath ever gets up to the final level, the top spot, no matter where you are on the board, no matter what realm you're in, you're going to be pulled and sucked in and you have to go there. And that's bad, obviously, because you haven't turned over other Oracle cards, you haven't been able to ask other Oracle questions, and so you're in a situation where you're probably not going to have enough knowledge to have a pretty good idea of what is going on. Now, if somebody has locked in their location, like I said, and you have the Soul of Swamp, and you can say, bam, I got the hideout. The person that has the hideout, if they've locked in the hideout for the villain, they have an option. They can either make the first claim, ignoring whatever the claim order might be for determining where the villain and what weapon needs to be used to destroy them. They can ask an additional question, like they're at the Oracle immediately, meaning that they can just pick on somebody, they pick somebody and do the exact same thing as they would normally do at an Oracle to get some more information, or they can draw an unrevealed Oracle card. So if you didn't make it all the way around, you wanted to pick up one of the unrevealed Oracle cards, flip it over, you get that information. Now you've whittled down the possibility of an incorrect answer. regardless, if the person, if you didn't have somebody find the hideout, or the person that did find the hideout chooses not to go first, what you're going to do then is whoever has like the most of the item that was determined at the beginning of the game, in this case it's mana crystals, whoever has the most mana crystals will go first. If there's a tie, you're going to total up everybody's coins, everybody's mana crystals, everybody's secret cubes, everybody's scrolls, and whoever has the most of that will pick first. If there's still a tie, which is probably unlikely, you'll just roll the die until somebody gets a higher number, and that's the person that will pick first. Picking is pretty simple. All you're doing is you're going to pick two of those things. You're going to pick a villain, you're going to pick a weapon, you're going to take this out, this folder out, you're going to look on the inside. If you're right, you flip the cards over, you say, bam, I got it right, I win the game. If you're wrong, you say, I lost, then it goes to the next person, and then they make their guess. And then if they're wrong, then it goes to the next person, they make a guess, and so on and so forth. Now, if somebody gets it right, super, great, they've won. If nobody gets it right, that means the witch has won, she's drained your souls, and she's going to destroy the world. The only other thing is that with the fire scrolls and the ice scrolls, if you have a complete fire scroll, you don't have to guess the villain. You just have to guess the weapon. If you have a complete ice scroll, you don't have to guess the villain. You guess the weapon. You just have to guess the villain. If somehow you manage to get all 5 of both, then you don't have to guess at all. You've won the game without having to take any kind of stab at it whatsoever. So that's pretty unlikely that'll happen. It hasn't happened in any of the games I've played, but feasibly, if you're not watching what other people are doing, it could very well occur if they are, pretty good at the game and also getting a little bit lucky as well. So, I mean, there you go. I mean, that is the nuts and bolts of how to play this game. It is a fantastic game that, like, after the first time, like when I first read the rules, I was like, well, this seems pretty straightforward, and I was really gung-ho to play. But as I played the very first time, and as I peeled the onion that is this game, I realized there was a lot more to it. There was a lot more strategy, a lot more things going on that I expected, and I was very pleasantly surprised at the depth of the strategy and the tactics that I needed to use to be able to actually pull off a win. And I was actually pretty happy. I never win games, and I actually won a couple of this one, so I was pretty excited about that. But let me talk about that and more in my final thoughts. Alright, so there you go. That is Paradise Lost. Thanks for sitting through that and learning how the game is played. As I said, I'm not going to go over that too much as far as like the how meaty the game is, but anytime like you have to, I like deduction games. I enjoy doing that process of elimination. I also enjoy the wonderful aspect of just taking a wild guess when all else fails, just throwing up my hands and hoping for the best. And like when you get to the end and like you realize that like you still got like 2 or 3 of the weapons or 2 or 3 of the villains uncovered, and you're like, I have no idea which ones are which, right? And you have to kind of, but here's the kind of neat thing is that like and something I didn't mention. Well, 2 things I didn't mention, I apologize for this. Each one of the heroes that you pick, like the classic heroes, they have special abilities and powers. So that's something that's kind of important. I do like games with variable player powers, and I should have mentioned that. I should have showed you some of those, but you can go ahead and check those out on the Kickstarter page. You'll be able to read up on those and take a read of the rules as well, and you'll be able to dig into that a little bit. The other thing that I found really interesting was the fact that like choosing later at the end is very helpful, but also like a gamble as well. Meaning that like the person ahead of you, as long as nobody's got like all their scrolls, because you can actually see that they've got all their scrolls and they're going to be able to like skip that particular guess. But when somebody ahead of you takes a guess and guesses, and you're looking at your sheet basically, and they guess one of the blanks that you have and they actually get a wrong answer, that's a really powerful thing, as far as like knowledge that you have at the very end. Now, like I said, you run the risk of the person ahead of you guessing correctly and you lose the game, but maybe, and it's kind of a neat thing, maybe you want to be second, maybe even third, when you get to that end spot at the witch's palace, because it's I want that knowledge, especially if you're not really sure what the answer is on your end as well. Now, I do think, and I didn't say this in rules, but I do think when you get to the end, like, you can't guess a purposely wrong answer. Like, if you've marked off, whatever, something on your card, say you've marked off the 9-headed hydra. I don't think you should be able to, like, say 9-headed hydra and this, just because you think there's no chance of you to pull off a win, but you want to make sure nobody else wins either. I think that's what I mean. And if you're gonna play with somebody like that, they're just a jerk, and you probably shouldn't be playing with them anyway. But so just I think that at the very end, like I said, there wasn't a specific rule for that. At least I didn't remember reading that. That I think it should exist. Like, you have to make a legitimate guess at the end. But going on to the actual gameplay of the game, this was a fantastic game of resource management for me. I mean, you always had to be changing up the resources that you needed because of the fact that you never knew exactly what the Oracle was going to need at the end. You never knew exactly, like, you wanted to, like, build up a bunch of currency that would basically allow you to go ahead and purchase seeker cubes at the end. Because getting that hideout and being able to lock like a hideout triangle in place to kind of give yourself the best possible chance to win at the end, super powerful, super important, and just something that was really, really needed. Plus, this game has all the other things I really like about games like this, like the reveal of cards, having like basically a threat track, whereas this isn't a cooperative game, though there is like a cooperative variant or a semi-cooperative variant that you definitely can play if you want to play, and I did play that with my kids, just because they saw the game, recognized some of the people, like the Red Riding Hood, obviously, and things like that, and they wanted to be able to, like, play the game as well. So we did play, like, everybody working together, and there's special rules for that, and there are some more rules, actually, for a 2-player game as well. So, and that works really well. I did play 2 players with my wife, and it actually works pretty well. But regardless to all those things, it's a game that, like, it has the interactivity between the players, which I really, really like, that basically makes sure that when you aren't playing a game of, like, just tend your own garden, and you're actually having people talk to each other and try to make decisions and things like that, and also the decisions of moving are relatively quick, you're not running into that problem where it's like, oh, one person's taking their big long turn, and you look across the table, and there's like 3 or 4 people, like, sitting there staring at their phones, waiting for their turn to go, so they can do their 7 or 8 actions that don't have any effect on anybody else on the table, and then everybody else, as they're doing it, they sit on their phones and do whatever, and that's something I try to avoid. Now, there's nothing wrong with those types of games, that's the kind of game you like, but for me, I like being able to, like, sit there and talk to people and have, like, interactions and conversations with those people when I do it. So, I like that about it. I like the resource management of the game. I like the deduction of the game. I dig the theme. I like the looks of it. I like the art. And it was just fun. The game was just flat out enjoyable. And like I said, it was a game that took me by surprise as far as the depth of it, and as far as, like, just how to, like, really grasp the strategy and the tactics in pulling out the win. So, if you have any questions about it, by all means, ask away about Paradise Lost. I'll be happy to answer those as best as I can. As always, thank you very much for taking the time to watch this video. I really do appreciate it very much. And as I've said many, many times before, just try to be the best version of you that you possibly can be. Give out happiness and love to the universe. I guarantee you it will come right back to you. As always, you are awesome. I'm the Undead Viking. I will catch up with you later.